I often say that in a minute I'm going to kind of identify myself as a different type of person than you've been hearing from on the floor. I happen to have the distinction of being the only Republican who objected in our conference a couple weeks ago to the ban on earmarks as they define it. And I just had no problem doing that at all, but it's something that is not a fun thing to do. We're seeing some things happen. Something happened tonight that went completely by everybody. It was a total change in the Republican position, and it's a good change, when Senator McCain and Senator Coburn both talked about authorization. I've often said that authorization is the only discipline on appropriations. And I believe that, and that's true. And so we have a situation where I have been saying now, not for months but for years, that if you just define an earmark as an appropriation that hasn't been authorized, I'm with you. And I heard them tonight say that. Now, unfortunately, that's not what the bill says that we're going to have before us. Well, I just like to do away with the whole word earmarks, or else define it in such a way as I just described, that now it seems like everyone would be in agreement with, and maybe that's going to be the road that we will be taking. Let me, first of all, before I surprise a lot of people, give my conservative credentials. I have always been ranked as one of the most conservative, or the most, members of the United States Senate. National Journal's most conservative senator for 2009, that's the last one they gave out. Quote, the only senator with a perfect score of 99 key votes. Inhofe's been voted the most outstanding U.S. senator by Human Events. So I'm the conservative. I'm the conservative, but a conservative who loves the Constitution. And I've been waiting for a long time, and I love these guys. Certainly the author of this, Senator Coburn, is a brother, and I love him, and brothers do fight sometimes. And this is a time that this fight's going to be over with, and we're going to have a happy ending on this thing. You know, I've been waiting for years for this Tea Party thing to happen, for conservatives, anti-establishment people to come in, and I get very excited when I see what we're looking at. And yet we have an administration with a majority in both houses that we've had now for quite some time, spend. And when they talk about George W. Bush, look, it's this administration that increased the debt to the amount it is now, which is a greater increase in debt than we've had collectively every president, every administration, from George Washington to George W. Bush. And they've all the time they've been talking about earmarks. That totally distracts people from what the real problem is. That isn't the problem. You know, I've been listening on the floor now for the last 2 years. Every night we go through the same thing. They talk about earmarks. What they didn't do is pay attention to the fact that during that discussion, this president, with his majority in both houses, was able to give my 20 kids and grandkids a $3 trillion deficit in 1 year. I mean, it's mind-boggling that this could happen. But, you know, we hear the president saying spend, and he has used the word quite often. We need to give the people what they desire. It reminds me of the story of the guy that went in the department store, and there's beautiful, young, voluptuous sales lady came up and said, "And sir, what is your desire?" He said, "Well, my desire is to pick you up after work and go to a fine restaurant and have dinner, buy a bottle of champagne, and go to my place and make mad, passionate love. But I need a pair of socks." Now, what we're going to have to understand is there is a difference between desire and need. And that's what I'm here to try to do. And to think that we could actually have said today, now the bill doesn't do this, but said that authorizing is kind of a lost art. Senator McCain said that, and frankly, I don't quite agree with that, because we have an authorization committee in Armed Services that I'm going to be talking. He's the ranking member, I'm the second ranking member, and it's some that we've done a pretty good job, but in other areas we have not. And keep in mind, authorizing is the only discipline that there is to appropriating. Now, put the little family picture up there, will you, Luke? These are my 20 kids and grandkids, and I have to tell the occupier of the chair that I was so proud to have all of them at one table on Thanksgiving. How many people are blessed that way? Not many. But this little guy here, where's Jace Rapert? Oh, here he is down here, the football guy. He came up to me one time, this is some time ago, and he said, "Popeye," I is for Inhofe, so it's Mama and Popeye. Is that okay? Yeah, thank you. He said, Papa, why is it you do things no one else will? And I said, that's the reason, because no one else will. And I'm reminded of 9 years ago when everybody, I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans, they all said that global warming's coming, the world's coming to an end, it's man-made gases that cause global warming. And I looked into the science and found at that time Republicans were a majority. I was the chairman of the Environment Public Works Committee that has that jurisdiction. And I looked at that and I found out they're cooking the science, that it wasn't true. But, you know, then we had the McCain-Lieberman bill and all these things that would pass a cap and trade, which would constitute the largest tax increase in the history of this country. And we beat them one at a time. The last one was Waxman-Markey. But again, this has been something that has finally evolved, that won my voice in the wilderness 10 years ago is now the prevailing thought. And that's why I say that, said to my little Jace Rayford grandson that, you know, I do it because no one else will. So let me just say this, how much more fun it would be to come down here and do the politically correct thing and say, oh, earmarks are bad, earmarks are bad, earmarks are bad. We're going to do away with the earmarks and let everyone applaud before they realize what it really is. But to be able to come down and say, I can hear the staffers right now telling their members, you know, you have the greatest opportunity. You can vote for this amendment to ban these earmarks, and you can make people think you're a conservative. Number one. Number two, you can make Obama happy, President Obama happy, because he is publicly supporting this. This is what he wants. Because this means, as it's been said by Senator Lautenberg, by Senator Harkin, and several others, if we don't do it, that goes to the president. I'm going to explain how that works in just a minute. We could also be politically correct. So there will be a lot of them thinking, this is what an opportunity this is. People will think, if I vote for this amendment, I'm a conservative. They'll think that obviously I can make our president happy. That would do me no harm. And I can be politically correct. Well, it's been demagoguing now for so many years. And let me define what the third Webster International Dictionary says about demagoguing. It says, we don't have a chart on that. We don't need that. The definition of demagoguing: political leaders who seek to gain personal or partisan advantage through specious, extravagant claims, promises, and charges. Well, that's what we've been listening to now for at least the last 2 years on a regular basis. And the big problem I have with all the demagoguing that's going on every night for the last 2 years is that people are just doing it, not paying attention to the real problem. And the real problem is not earmarks. The real problem is that during that 2-year period, when everyone is concerned about a few dollars, we found out that we've increased the debt more than it's been increased in the history of this country, and that we've given my 20 kids and grandkids a $3 trillion deficit in just 2 years. That's not possible. I never believed that could happen. But that's what has happened here. They distracted. Get this thing behind us so we can start working on this and not make people think we're doing something great for them when we're really not. You know, it would be nothing short but criminal to go through all the trouble of electing great new anti-establishment conservatives only to be politically correct and have them cede to Obama their constitutional power of the purse. And that's exactly what would happen. I want these new people coming in to tackle the 3 issues to really save America, and in my opinion, the deficit, the debt, and Obamacare, and not be distracted by the bogus issue of earmarks. Now, I say bogus. It's kind of a strong word. Why is it bogus? It's bogus. Put the chart up on the House language. It's bogus because, unconstitutional, but the bogus part shows the definition of what we are saying. The House of Representatives Republicans, not the Democrats, the Republicans, they took a moratorium, a 1-year moratorium, banning earmarks for that period of time. How did they define it? They said that they would, resolve that the policy of the Republican conference and no member shall request congressional earmark, limited tax benefit, and so forth, in conjunction with Clause 9, Rule 21 of the Rules of the House. Well, what is that Clause 9, Rule 21? It applies to every appropriations or authorization. In other words, they have said we will neither appropriate nor authorize for a whole year. Now, the Democrats are going to do it. The president's going to do it, but they say they're not going to do it. And of course, the authors of this amendment, they all agreed with and praised the House for doing this. But let's go ahead and see what the Constitution says. Article 1, Section 9. Several people here have talked about the Constitution. You know, it's times like this that I miss Bob Byrd. Senator Byrd would talk about the Constitution. Right now, he would be really outraged that it's so plain what we're supposed to be doing up here, what our constitutional oath of office tells us we're supposed to be doing. But the Article 1, Section 9 says no money shall be drawn from the treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law. Law, that's us, not the president. And I would just say that if you're looking at the Senate ban language, it says the term congressional directed spending item means a provision primarily at the request of senator providing expenditure, so forth, to an entity targeted to a specific state or with any, everything is with or without, or to an entity. Now, in other words, they say, again, they're talking about all appropriations, all authorizations. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to let the president do that. And that's what this whole thing's about. I was so excited when I heard for the first time agreeing with me. By the way, it's not appropriate for me to tell this group or say publicly what goes on inside a conference. But in a Republican conference, I can say what I said. And I said to my colleagues when they're trying to get us, and they did, I went up in 2008, and I went ahead and voted for a ban because I was told that they would define it as an appropriation that has not been authorized. Now, all of a sudden, they didn't do it then. All of a sudden, now they're talking about doing it. And I think I know why. In a minute, I'll tell you why I think it is. So we have this situation where we're saying we're not going to authorize, we're not going to appropriate. And there are two reasons to ban Senate spending by either definition. It cedes our constitutional authority to the president, and it also gives cover to big spenders. Let's go back to that Article 1, Section 9 chart, if you would. The Constitution restricts spending only to the legislative branch and specifically denies that honor to the president. We take an oath to uphold the Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. Now, maybe there's some doubt about this. If you think there's some doubt, let's go back and see what the founders of this country said. Let's see what the authors of the Constitution said. Let's look at James Madison. He said, the power over the purse may in fact be regarded as the most complete and effectual weapon with which any constitution can arm the immediate representatives of the people for obtaining redress of every grievance. Now, the two reasons that he did, if you study the Federalist Papers, they said that they wanted the Congress to do the spending because if they do it wrong, then first of all, they know the needs of the people of their state or their whatever the unit was at that time. And if they do it wrong, they can fire them. Look what happened on November 2nd. That's exactly what happened. Alexander Hamilton, he said, the legislature not only commands the purse, but prescribes the rules by which the duties and rights of every citizen should be regulated. That's what we're supposed to be doing. The Supreme Court, and this Justice Joseph Story, in his commentaries on the